Have you ever been in a room full of people who share your DNA, yet felt like you were standing on a different planet? It's a specific kind of coldness. It's not the cold of winter. It's the cold of being unseen. For you, the sensitive one. The one who didn't take the safe corporate job right out of college and, as a result, became the family cautionary tale. I remember the Sunday dinner that broke me. It was 3 years ago. My cousin, the investment banker, the golden boy, was holding court at the head of the table. He was talking about mergers, acquisitions, and summer homes. Everyone leaned in, their faces glowing with admiration. I was sitting at the far end, near the kitchen door. I had just lost my 3rd freelance client that month. I was battling an anxiety that felt like a belt tightening around my chest every morning. When I tried to speak, to mention that I was learning a new design framework that could change everything for me, my aunt waved a hand dismissively. "Maya, honey," she said, her voice dripping with that sickly sweet pity. "Maybe let's focus on getting you health insurance before we talk about your little art projects." The table laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh, or at least they didn't think so. It was the laugh of people who had categorized me as lesser. I was the underdog. The weird one. The charity case. I went home that night and stared at the ceiling until sunrise. I felt small. I felt like a mistake. But in that darkness, something snapped. It wasn't a break, it was a shift. I realized they didn't see me because they were looking down. So, I decided to climb so high they'd have to crane their necks just to see where I went. I went underground. I stopped attending the Sunday dinners. I told them I was busy, and they assumed I was depressed. They didn't ask further. They didn't know that my depression was actually an incubation period. I turned my pain into product. I realized that my sensitivity, the thing they mocked, was my superpower in user experience design. I could feel what a user felt. I could design empathy into digital spaces. While they were debating politics and judging neighbors, I was building a consultancy from a folding table in my studio apartment. I worked 18-hour days. Not because I loved the hustle culture, but because work became my therapy. The code didn't judge me. The pixels didn't ask why I wasn't married yet. The deliverables didn't care about my bank account, only my competence. 6 months in, I landed a contract with a tech giant. 6 months after that, I hired my first employee. I didn't post about it. I didn't update my LinkedIn. I kept it a secret. It felt fragile, like a flame in the wind, and I knew that if I brought it around my family too soon, they would blow it out with their doubt. Or worse, they would try to claim it. Success has a smell. And somehow, people who ignored you when you were struggling can smell it the moment it ripens. I don't know how they found out. Maybe a mutual friend saw my name in an industry article. Maybe I slipped up and bought a nice car. But the phone call started. At first, it was subtle. "We miss you, Maya. We're so proud of you. We always knew you were special." Always knew. The revisionist history was almost impressive. Then came the antagonist of my story. Not a stranger, but my uncle. The same man who told me art was a poverty sentence. He called me for lunch. He bought the appetizers. He smiled that wide, paternal smile. "Maya," he said, clasping his hands. "The family is in a bit of a tight spot. The golden boy, well, his investments didn't pan out. We risk losing the lake house. Since you're doing so well now and we're all so happy for you, we thought you could step up. It's time to give back to the people who raised you." He slid a piece of paper across the table. It wasn't a request, it was an expectation. A family loan. No interest. No repayment date. Just a blank check signed with guilt. The old Maya would have signed it. The old Maya would have paid any price to buy her way back into the circle, to finally be praised as the savior. I almost reached for the pen. But then I remembered the little art project's comment. I remembered the exclusion. I didn't say yes immediately. I told him I needed to look at the numbers. He was offended. "It's family, Maya. Why do you need to check the numbers?" "Because it's my money," I said. I went home and dug deep. I didn't just look at the loan, I looked at the situation. I made calls. I found out the tight spot wasn't a tragedy, it was negligence. The golden boy hadn't just made a bad investment, he had been gambling. The family emergency was actually a cleanup operation for his recklessness. They weren't asking me for help, They were asking me to be the janitor for the person they had always preferred over me. They were weaponizing toxic positivity, family is everything, to exploit the success they had once bet against. I realized I wasn't a member of the family to them. I was a resource. The confrontation didn't happen with screaming. Real power doesn't need to scream. I invited them over. I made tea. I sat them down. I've reviewed the request, I said softly. Great, my uncle said, reaching for the checkbook I hadn't brought out. We knew you'd do the right thing. I am doing the right thing, I replied. I opened the folder. Inside were not checks, but legal documents. I am willing to buy the lake house from you. At market value. It will be in my name. The golden boy can pay rent if he wishes to stay there. Here are the terms. The silence in the room was deafening. You could hear the dust settling. This is insulting, my aunt spat. You're treating us like a business transaction. You came to me for money, I said, my voice steady, though my hands were trembling beneath the table. That is a business transaction. You didn't come for love. You didn't come to apologize for the years of exclusion. You came to get a bailout. I don't do bailouts. I do investments. And investing in bad behavior is a poor strategy. I laid out the receipts. I showed them I knew about the gambling. I showed them I knew they had asked 3 other relatives before coming to me. I stripped away the family guilt and left only the naked truth. They stormed out. They called me selfish. They called it betrayal. They called it betrayal. I called it setting a boundary. For a few weeks, it hurt. My phone stopped ringing. The silence returned. But this time, the silence wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. It was the sound of a space that I had curated. It isn't just about the bank account. It's about having the agency to say no. It's about realizing that you don't owe your abusers a slice of your success just because they share your last name. I still have my struggles. I still have anxiety. But now, when I walk into a room, I don't look for the exit. I don't look for approval. I look for the work that matters. If you are out there, feeling like the black sheep, feeling like the underdog, keep building in the dark. Let them laugh. Let them ignore you. Build your fortress so high and so strong that when they finally come knocking, and they will, you have the strength to decide whether or not to open the door. Every great success starts with a struggle. And sometimes, the greatest victory isn't getting them to love you. It's learning to love yourself enough to let them go.